source is withholding information from the general public on this subject.
The Church of Mbabus.
Welcome to the Church of Mbabus, everybody. It's Saturday night. Coming at you live from Florida. That's right. First off, we're going to talk about the Dark Knight Spree Killer for a second, and then our guest is Thomas Hughes, telepathic Sasquatch communicator, and our co-host is Andy Colvin, Mothman photographer. So we got a wild, eclectic show here tonight. Strange character ensemble of individuals. So, someone just asked me if I'm Larry King. Yeah, I am. I'm Larry King's fetus in the chat room, just to let you know. Really, I was born in a test tube, and they injected Larry King DNA. Oh, no. Sound effects, no. So, anywho, what was it, Friday about after 1 a.m., right when Friday hit? Guy busted to the theater in Aurora, Colorado, dressed up pretty much like Bane, the villain, in The Dark Knight, kills over 12 people, a 6-month-old girl, just goes crazy, has 6,000 rounds of ammunition, 50 injured. Pretty much, the weird thing is this guy, no record, one traffic ticket, a neuroscience, or work for some kind of neuroscience farm. His parents are all in the government or something. They're spooks. And the weird thing is he's got his apartment booby-trapped with all kinds of crazy explosives. I think they're still sorting through that and got the area quarantined. I mean, he has his apartment set up like freaking, landmine booby-trapped in Vietnam or something. It's just crazy. Of course, now they're trying to tie him into Occupy Wall Street, which I don't even know if that's true. You got one side saying it's true. You got another side saying it's not true. So I'm sure the yuppie 1% jerk-offs would love for that to be true and use that to their advantage. Oh, he's Occupy Wall Street. They're terrorists. Oh, no. But, well, nonetheless, Andy, what's your thoughts on this?
We were wondering today when they were going to come up with a meme for him, like why he did it. You know, the disgruntled dropout or whatever. And because there really wasn't a clear one coming forth. But if they're now tying it into Occupy Wall Street, well, that would be the all they got to do is throw that out for just a second, and that's all they need, and then everybody will go back to doing what they're doing and start hating the protesters more and more and more. So good on whoever came up with this op. I don't think this guy is in control of his own mind. For instance, why would you booby-trap your apartment like that and then tell the police it was booby-trapped? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And the other thing is, a week ago, or 6 days before that, if you look on my Facebook page, you'll see that when Chase announced that they had had a bigger scandal going on than previously, stated, in other words, they lied to us time, I predicted a terror event within the week, and that's what we got. Because, I've been doing this calendar for a few years where I just sort of casually follow the news. And I noticed that every year there's a Chase scandal. You name it. I mean, there's been one every year. They're all a little different. But each time there's a Chase scandal, there's a mass shooting at the same time. And so that's what I said. I said, look for something like that, and that's what we got. And I think, the fact that it's located in Denver, where Columbine occurred, the San Diego connection with the parents working for DARPA, companies that are in league with DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects. That is basically the mind control, part of the military. And the father's work record is basically empty for 20 years. And the mother, too, being a nurse and all that, I don't know if we've gotten anything on her, but I would wonder about both of them possibly being spooks. And I would wonder about the shooter himself being a spook or being drafted in at some point recently and then being set up to take the fall for this event, which seems to be not only deflecting from Chase, but also from getting us into the gun control voting, to vote for the gun control. So, and we do have a report of a second gunman. So, just like in Norway, just like in Arizona, there's a second person, and that is the agency person who's on the inside who gets the patsy to do the thing, to get out there and start shooting, and then they immediately disappear. Or in the case of Norway, the guy actually got arrested and was photographed, and then he disappeared. You remember that guy with the purple hair?
Yeah.
So, there's not a whole lot here to make us think that this is in any way a grassroots situation. He's unemployed. Where does he get all the money to buy all this stuff? And there's a connection to Ray with his grandfather, who was a lieutenant colonel, taught classes at Monterey, which is a spook school. So it looks like the whole family is basically, spook family. So it's a sad thing, and I hope that people don't buy into it as being a Occupy Wall Street event or anything like that. And it seems to be another event to, take away people's civil liberties, actually.
Yeah, I definitely believe there's some kind of influence that triggered him or something. It just doesn't make any sense. They can grab a hold of you and hypnotize you and insert stuff, and then you wake up and hear a word, and next thing you know, you're going nutter butter. So there's definitely a lot of weird ties with him, with the neuroscience thing, the government, parents working for the government, just really weird. Just the intelligence level of the setting up those bombs in his apartment and all that stuff. Definitely just crazy.
You think they could do a better job? It's just so sloppy. That's the thing about these. They're just sloppy. Come on, give us a cover story that's better. Give us, a family that doesn't appear to be spooks. Get rid of the second gunman. Try to make it, if you're going to do this kind of thing, do a better job, because I don't think nobody in the research community is buying it as at its face value. I don't see anybody buying it.
Well, it's definitely a terrible thing that these people are victims to it, and kids. And man, I love the Dark Knight movies. If I was sitting in that theater and freaking got killed in the middle of it and didn't get to see the end of it, I'd be pissed. I'd haunt the hell out of that dude.
What? Here, what's a 3-year? I don't know. Was there a 3-year-old there? Or 6-year-old? What are kids doing at this movie?
It's like a 6-year-old at the midnight show, and there was babies there, so it's just stupid. I don't know why they're there.
I mean, it's like you can't judge a person who has been attacked because they were out at night. With the old "what were you doing out?" I'm not saying that. Maybe the kid was asleep or something. I don't know, but it's crazy. That's just another aspect of this that I find appalling, is that we've degenerated to the point where we're taking young children to see these horribly violent movies. And that's only going to make this cycle worse. And more, the more of these cases you have, everyone gets desensitized to these situations, and they stop looking into them, which I think is what's happening. And that's why these are so sloppy now, because nobody's really putting. Well, a lot of people are investigating these cases, but they're just not. It's being censored. and you, or just, I mean, you can find this stuff on the internet, but it's ghettoized. This kind of research is ghettoized, so that even though the information is out there, we know that the Arizona shooter was going after the judge, the Anti-Patriot Act judge, under the cover of shooting the other lady. But how many people, because of any kind of alternative theories, are ridiculed so much now that you know, even though the information is sitting there, people don't want to believe it. They're afraid to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to it that's strange, but some people go overboard. It's like I posted something up on Before News, and there are these little jerks saying that the whole thing was the whole thing was fake, that even the victims were actors, and they're discussing this in such detail that, I mean, there's some people that take the conspiracy stuff just way overboard, and to sit there and say the whole thing is like an act, like the moon landing is just insane. But I can admit there's definitely something going on, but some people take it a little too far to sit there and say, everybody there is staging it, even the victims. So, I mean, I got in an argument with someone about that on Before It's News. I'm like, you're just an idiot. Oh, God.
Well, they're not idiots necessarily. Those are probably sock puppets, or mill puppets, as they call them, military sock puppets, who are pumping that stuff out, and let's credit any discussion of what happened. They put out the most ridiculous theory, no planes, no victims, to totally ruin the debate.
They were definitely weird. I thought about that, too. I was like, who are these people to say something that stupid? I mean, there's people crying their eyes out. I've seen people, I know a guy that was on my Facebook, his friend was shot there. He luckily survived, but, I mean, people are really hurting this thing. I mean, that's something to take serious. They're already putting up pictures, making fun of it, saying funny, stupid things like, you should have bought a copy of the pirated copy, you wouldn't have died, or, they're already putting up all this insensitive shit on Facebook that's just disgusting about it, that disgusts me even.
It's either teenagers or mill puppets putting that stuff out. And what about the woman who was at the Toronto shooting and then ends up at that one and is killed? What's going on there?
I don't know. She was hot, but apparently she just got some bad luck.
No. I don't buy it. I don't buy that. I think that she somehow was investigated. She might have been a spook. She may have been a spook for a certain agency who was investigating what happened to Toronto from another country, perhaps. She may be, you don't know who these people are working for, but her appearance at both of these was very suspicious and almost beyond coincidental.
Yeah.
Not to cast aspersions on her. I'm not saying that she was a bad person or anything, but that's very suggestive of some kind of network, you might say, of this kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely strange stuff going on with it. Prayers to the victims, and it's just, no matter what it is, innocent people, got killed during a Batman movie. That's just sad in itself. But I guess let's get to Thomas and start the interview. Thomas, do you have anything to add on this conversation before we get into Squatch World?
Well, all these things go on just to cause emotional responses, and that's exactly what's going on right now with the things that are being said in the chat room and here on the show. And the only thing I can say is, holy Bigfoot, Batman.
Yeah. That's right. Well, let's get into the world of squatchery. I'm sure they'll be talking about this so much up until next year this time, probably so much we'll be sick of it. I'm already getting sick of it, but it's still, they'll be talking about so much on regular news, I'm just not even going to turn it on. So, I guess, Thomas, let's start off with, how did your initial Sasquatch experiences begin? How did you first enter into that territory, so to speak, when it comes to Sasquatches and your journey?
Well, before I get into that, I just want to say about that whole situation you guys discussed, I can't wait to hear people start saying, that's so 12 seconds ago, because that's how old it is. I mean, it's been done over and over and over again. Why are we giving attention to it? Why aren't we saying that's so 12 seconds ago and going on to something else? Okay, I got it out. Sorry, had to. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
How did you enter the world of squatchery? How did it start?
Well, back in 2008, my ex-wife and I had both been laid off from our jobs. We couldn't find other jobs, and we had interviewed, and she actually got a job at Walmart. Not that that's very glamorous or anything. And so I was pretty much the bottom of the barrel, and I sat outside in my office one day, and I made it clear I didn't know who was listening and didn't care. I just said, I don't know who's listening, but I'm making it very clear right now that I'm done. D-U-U-N, done. And then I had the open mouth insert foot moment, and I said the word but. But if you guys want me to stick around for any number of reasons, you're going to have to give me a reason to get up every day. And it was 2 months later that I saw the Sasquatch female in person down at my family's place. My family has 900 acres of land just 10 miles down the road from where I live right now. That's where I was when I saw her in person.
And what exactly happened? How did that experience go?
Yeah, it was about 5:30 in the morning. I had the full moon off to the west and the rising sun off to the east. And this was in early June is when it was. Early June is when I saw her in person. So I had enough light to where I could see individual trees in the woods as I'm walking down the dirt road. Instead of a big black mass when you look in the woods, when there's not enough light, that's usually all you see is a big black mass. And so she jogged between a stand of trees. So I saw her for about 5 seconds. And she's about my height. I'm 6 feet 7 inches tall, and she's about my height. I could see the breasts on the front of her. That's how I knew she was a female, not a male. And she had long hair down to, I guess, about the middle of her back. And the lighting was enough to where I could see pretty good detail, to the point where I could see the six-pack or the stomach in the front of her body underneath the hair. So she was about 50 feet away from me when I saw her, and the first words that came out of my mouth, I looked back down at the dirt road and kept walking, and I said out loud, "My God, how can anyone call them monsters? She's gorgeous," and she is, and it just kind of went from there.
So did you continue to have sightings of her, or was it just a one-time situation, or did she appear more than once?
No, that was, I continued to have sightings, but, you know, I've seen them 9 times during the daylight, and I've seen their silhouette more than a dozen times at night when they come around, when I go out there. I don't go out there anymore. I just don't have I guess I should go ahead and say this too. I have or had multiple sclerosis. So this body I live in is an absolute train wreck. And that's another reason I'm ready to go, because my health is not coming back. It comes and goes. But I really was ready to go. And so I'm no threat. Over time, with my experiences with them, I really began to understand free will, that it's not just humans that have free will. It's all life on Earth has free will. And so I had made my choice that I'd like to see them and be around them, and then I had to put myself in a position to where I allowed them to make the choice as to whether they wanted to come around or not. And so I did, and that's when I started seeing them and having more experiences. That's when I started getting photographs. I'm kind of jumping ahead here, so forgive me a little bit. But, it wasn't very long after that I was really ready for a straight jacket and a rubber room, because what I call mind speak I don't call it telepathy because that word doesn't quite cover everything that goes on in a communication. But the mind speak started. And I couldn't check myself in like I wanted to because I had physical evidence right in front of me that directly reflected the communication I was getting. I mean, when you go on 900 acres of private land and there's nobody else around and you're finding exactly what you were told you would find, and then you're seeing their footprints around, you're like, okay, here's the evidence. Am I going to check myself in, or am I just going to go with this? So I just kind of went with it. I'm sorry, I deferred too much from... Anyway, please ask me another question.
So, what is your perspective on them? What are they? You claim that they're from another planet of some sort. What is your exact perspective on what they are and who they are?
Well, they came here from the dying world. Everybody knows it nowadays as the Kuiper's Belt, the asteroid belt out there beyond Mars. It was actually a planet at one time called Maldoc, and that's where they came here from. They also went to other worlds as well to ensure the survival of that species of life, physical species of life, I should say, correct myself. But, yeah, they went to several places throughout the cosmos. They didn't just come to Earth, but Earth was the first place they came to. And I say it like that, that's not exactly accurate. This is the first place they came to that they decided to live and call their home. Some of them were on Mars for a time before it went as bad as it did. Unlivable for a time, but it's very livable now. Mars is a very livable planet, so that's why the shadow government, or whatever you want to call them, that's why they have bases there, because the atmosphere is actually breathable, and there's life there, so it's not commonly known.
So, Andy, do you have any questions?
No, I was just wondering about the only thing I can think of right now is this planet sounds similar to a planet that John Keel used to talk about. A lot of the UFO contactees were talking about. The spelling can be a little different. It sounds like the same, you know. I'm wondering if there's a UFO connection here. Have you had any UFO experiences along with this?
By the literal definition of UFO, unidentified flying objects, yes, I have. I'm very familiar. I used to live next to Intercontinental Airport in Houston for a very long time, so I'm familiar with the patterns of aircraft and the strobe lights that they have, and you know, when you see a stationary object in the sky with lights on it that wasn't there the night before, and you continue on with what you're doing, and 10 minutes later you look up and it's gone, you know, it's not a satellite, it's not an aircraft, it's got to be something else. But I just say, okay, it was unidentified, I have no idea what it was. So yes, I have had those experiences as well, along with literally being struck by lightning and having a tornado just down 200 feet away from me. It just, you know, the more paranormal it gets for other people, the more normal it gets for me. That's all I can say about that.
Well, I guess I was kind of struck by lightning. I was definitely, It went in my finger. I was rowing on a lake, and the lake was struck by lightning. And the charge went up the oar and into my finger. And the whole thing was really a strange and paranormal experience. For some reason, it felt like you were in the Twilight Zone or something. Like after it happened, it I don't know if it rewires your brain or what, but it's something I never forgot. And I still have today. I still have a mark on the end of my finger, and you know, no healing in that finger at the tip of that finger. But I was reading your bio, and maybe Jeff can read a little bit, from your bio, because I don't think you've done that yet, or did we, Jeff? You might want to do that. But did it say you were from Irving? So is this property you're talking about, is that up near Dallas?
It's between Dallas and Houston. It's close to College Station, Texas, which is the home of the Texas A&M Aggies. So that's close to where I'm at. And like what's that? I'm sorry.
Isn't Irving up near Dallas, or am I completely off base there?
Yeah, there's a bunch of little towns or cities up there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and that's why they're there, because they didn't want to live in Dallas and they didn't want to live in Fort Worth, so they made their own towns. So there's Euless and Bedford and Irving and Grand Prairie, and God, how many towns are there between Dallas and Fort Worth?
Okay, so that is where you lived, and the other place, or what's the College Station location? Is that where the Sasquatch was seen?
Yeah, that's close to where I'm living now. Just 10 miles down the road, my family has 900 acres of land, and because one of their neighbors had an up-close and personal experience with one, I now have access to 1,200 acres of land that they own. So I have a 2,100-acre backyard I can go play in.
Wow. I could use one of those.
I just wanted to say I also have been struck by lightning. I was on the phone interviewing Serge Kahele King, Hoona Shaman, and lightning hit the porch and went through the phone lines and knocked the crap out of me, and I still did the interview. And Serge said it was a great sign of power, which was funny to hear a shaman say that after he's been struck by lightning. But it scared the hell out of me. I thought I was going to die. Yeah, it went through the phone, and it was like more than once, too. It was like 2 or 3 shocks, one after another. And then I was interviewing a shaman, and he goes,
well,
yeah, he did.
In 1992, I had a dream, and it was raining. In the dream, it was raining heavily, and I made it in the house, and was sitting on my bed upstairs, and I was going to college at that time, so I was living with the parents, and the father called upstairs to me, and he said, "Come move your car. Your mother's home, and she needs to park in the garage." Well, normally I parked on the street, but I parked in the driveway that day because I figured she was already home, seeing the time of day, but she wasn't. So in the dream, I went back outside, ran to my car, moved it out of the way so she could get her car in the garage, and I pulled back into the driveway and turned the car off, and I jumped out and ran for the door as fast as I could because it's raining. Cats and dogs come to mind, and I didn't want to get soaked, so I'm running for the door, and that's when I was struck by lightning in the dream, and I was hit in the head, and the dream ended. I woke up at that point. I'm like, oh, good, it was just a dream. Okay, and I'm fine with that. And then 2 weeks later, the same thing identically was going on. The only difference was I came home, it was raining, I ran upstairs, was sitting on my bed trying to decide which Blockbuster video to watch first. Remember Blockbuster? Used to rent videotapes? Anyway, yeah. I had two videotapes that I'd rented, and I was trying to decide which one I wanted to watch first. And the father called upstairs and said, "Come move your car because your mom wants to park in the garage." Well, I didn't think anything about it. I just grabbed my keys, out the door I went, moved my car, she pulled into the garage, I pulled back into the driveway, turned my car off, ran for the house, made it all the way upstairs, was sitting on my queen-size bed in the upstairs of my room, trying to decide which Blockbuster video to watch first. And that's when I immediately turned to the right and looked at the antenna wire that was laying on the ground. I had a ham radio set up in my room, and the lightning bolt hit the ham radio antenna outside, came down that wire, arced once onto the floor, arced a second time, and hit me directly in the foot and threw me across the room like I was a rag doll.
It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, it hurts. It's not a pleasant experience. So if anybody can remember times that they've walked across dry carpet and then touched a metal door handle and they get that little shock. If you can amplify that about 5,000 times, that's what it felt like to be hit in the foot by lightning.
Yeah, it's scary. It scared the hell out of me. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah. I got over any fear I had in this body at that point because there's no time to be afraid. And what's the point in being scared after the fact? So I'm like, well, if I can survive a lightning strike, I can pretty much survive anything, which led me down the path of being an assistant manager in the biggest topless club in Houston at one time and driving a yellow cab in the city of Houston for a time and working in the oil field where I almost got killed 3 times. That was fun. So it's been a real nice roller coaster ride, I can say that. It hasn't exactly been fun all the time, but it's been very interesting, to say the least.
So what exactly do the Sasquatch say to you when they communicate to you? What are they trying to convey?
Well, the first thing, the hard case I was up against was an elder that was close to 80 years old. And I won't say his name on the air. I have his name, but he was hard on me. It wasn't to be mean. It was simply to wake me up to the fact that I'm not the skin suit because I was under the programming that most people in this country and in other parts of the world are under. They think they're a human and they have a soul. And the reality is we're all souls and we live in a human skin suit. So that's why he was hard on me, to wake me up to that fact. And, help me to remember things that I'd forgotten because of the programming. Also, some very simple concepts called universal or spiritual law, and I tend to agree with Mr. What's his name? I can't remember the Australian guy, Cavassilis, when he says that law is a artificial skin that's been placed over what's really there by those that are trying to control us, when it's really lore. Instead of law, it's lore, L-O-R-E. And so those are things that I began to wake up to. And when I started waking up to those things, I started receiving visitations all the time from eagles and raccoons and rabbits and, God, the list goes on. I don't know if I can name all the different life forms that I've had visitations from in the physical, just out of the blue.
So one thing I've come across since I've been doing these Sasquatch shows, me and Andy have been doing them, and I've been doing a lot of articles and interviews, and God, this is like our 4th or 5th one in a row. Well, not in a row, but we've done a pretty good bit, and I've done a bunch on Examiner. Why do you think people have such a hard time believing that there's a Bigfoot or Sasquatch, but it seems like these same people have no problem believing in aliens or ghosts or, Jesus Christ, but you mentioned Sasquatch, and they just go off into la-la land and say it's not true or whatever. Why? I mean, I don't understand what the resistance is with that. If you believe in, religious elements of, people flying around bringing justice to the earth and angels, dashing babies' heads on rocks and aliens and ghosts and demonic activity, why can't you believe in Bigfoot? I mean, what do you think the resistance is with Bigfoot when it comes to some people?
Well, on any subject matter, you can usually tell by the way the person is talking and the words they choose or resist you with. But basically what goes on when you start talking about these things is they believe. And that's the first problem, is that they believe in something, and nobody really ever thinks about the definition of the word believe. It's 2 words, an opinion. And anybody listening can put in the believe definition in Google or whatever search engine you use, and any dictionary you find online will say 2 words, an opinion. Okay, that being said, when you start talking about these things, because they don't believe or they believe that they don't exist, when you start talking about it, you're very much upsetting their version of reality. So if you're not upsetting their version of reality, usually they'll listen and they have questions, and they continue to have questions, and they'll talk to you about it. But if you're upsetting their version of reality, they become aggressive, they become adamant, they start ridiculing you, and all sorts of other things. So I just leave those people aside. I don't even worry about those people anymore. I've taken more abuse verbally from people over the last 4.5 years than I did in the previous 38 years of my life because of that. So I don't talk about this very much anymore. It's like, oh, if you want the experience, it's not that hard to have one. But, how do you explain that to people?
Yeah, there's definitely a rush of Bigfoot and Sasquatch interest going on lately. I don't know if that's because of that silly show Finding Bigfoot, or just seems like a lot more people are interested in it. And at first, I always just thought Bigfoot was made up over, Neanderthals, or like tribes that for some reason didn't turn into humans or go through that growth spurt. And of course, I've heard the David Paulides talk about the Native Americans saying that they're people and they're tribes of like wild men, and they have they're more in tune with nature and spirituality. And then I did an interview with him where he said that almost all the DNA that's ever come back of Sasquatch has come back as human. And I'm just curious, are there different types of Sasquatch? Let's say there's some that are from this planet you speak of, but are they some that maybe are some kind of tribe of human from back in the day that kind of like maybe stuck that way, or something, or like the wild people version of the Native Americans? Or are all of them, do you think, from this planet? Or is there like a mixture of just different origins when it comes to them?
Well, there's a doctor, a geneticist here in Texas. Her name is Dr. Melba Ketchum. And I've spoken with her on the phone before. She's now having her own experiences because she's gotten into this, but basically she's never been allowed to produce the results of what she found when she would test the DNA samples that were submitted to her. She's first geneticist in modern times to use human markers in the testing of the DNA, and her results are that the Sasquatch DNA is 99.5 to 99.6% identical to human DNA. So that's 0.4 to 0.5% different from us. That's 0.5% or less. So basically they're us, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah. And yeah, I know David and her are connected in the same organization, and definitely I've dealt with a bunch of people in the Sasquatch community, and a lot of them are really cool, but there's some that, man, I don't know what the hell's wrong with them. They're just crazy as hell. They want to just label it as some kind of weird escaped monkey or something, and just, if you say anything else that has to do with anything spiritual or multidimensional or, God forbid, aliens or UFO tie-in, they go crazy to the point of just nuts. There's definitely some wild elements in the Squatch community that are definitely from sane to insane when it comes to people. Like I've ran into the ones that get upset when I ask people about the UFO connection, and they just go crazy. They don't want to mix it. It just, I guess, scares them, freaks them out. They just start calling you a kook and crazy, and that's just from me doing an interview and just asking a question. I asked Nick Pope, British former mod, Minister of Defense, about it, and then one site put it up, and then I saw the comments. They got crazy. They don't like to mix up the alien UFO thing with Bigfoot, but I don't really have a problem with it. I think there's some truth to it. And also, I believe, Native Americans have been in contact with the Star People. I just watched Rainbow Eagle on this excellent DVD, and Clifford Mahooty from the Zuni tribe and their connections with the Star People. So why wouldn't tribal-like Sasquatches who live in tribes like Native Americans, why wouldn't they have contact with the Star People just like the Native Americans would? It makes sense to me. And then Stan Gordon, just genius in himself on this subject. He has so much evidence of people seeing UFOs and Sasquatch. It's insane. I mean, he has so much good evidence of cases that just runneth over about, the Sasquatch UFO connection. So I don't have a problem with there being a connection. I think there is, but I've definitely seen people that, for some reason, they just want it to be some kind of, crazy King Kong running around out there, and they don't want it to be smarter than them or whatever, and it definitely proves that it has an intelligence level that may outweigh humans, and the spirituality, to shift dimensions and blend in with nature. And I just saw that movie Letters from the Big Man by Christopher Munch, and I'm interviewing him on Examiner, and it's supposed to be coming on DVD soon, but it was at Sundance, and it was excellent, and it was the best Bigfoot movie I've ever seen. The Bigfoot in it wasn't a psycho like in crazy movies. It was like what you're talking about, and like others who, like Tom Powell and, the Native Americans, David Paulides, who spoke of it. It was like that, and it could change dimensions. And I jokingly said it was like Conversations with God. The movie meets Harry and the Hendersons, but not as extreme. And when it spoke to the main hot chick in Letters from the Big Man, I forget her name, but the main actress was smoking hot. It would say stuff like "center your heart" and talk in this weird, deep, telepathic voice about spiritual stuff. But that's how I believe they really are. There may be some, like back in the olden golden days of Native American folklore and all that stuff, there may have been some like crazy ones running around eating people and stuff like that. Or like in the biblical times, like I think some of them may be connected to the Nephilim on some level. So, I mean, I think that now they're advanced. But, back in the day, there may have been some that were, wild and crazy that threw people in baskets and ate them like in Native American folklore. But I definitely would like to think now that they've evolved past that point and don't do that anymore and have reached spiritual level of being evolved and enlightened and with the light on some level.
Well, let me the reverse of that. It may be the fact that we've evolved to where we're at, and they don't look at us as lower life forms anymore. But putting all that aside, we've got literally decades of known primate research, and we've got all these witness reports all over the world, not just in North America, but in South America, Australia, Europe, and of them walking upright on 2 feet. So obviously they're a primate, because even science calls humans Homo sapien primate. So one of the big inspirations for me, or one of my heroes in this, when I went out the door, was Diane Fossey, because she was dealing with primates that were so much bigger than her. I mean, a male silverback weighs, 450 pounds? And they're strong as could be, so I thought, why not? I'll just take some notes from her research and apply it to what I'm doing here and see where it goes. And I don't understand why more people don't do that. If they talk about using the scientific method, but they don't, that's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, so what do you think they're doing when they shift and you can't, they camouflage themselves? Can you go into that? What exactly are they doing?
They're changing their frequency. Hang on just 1 second. What they're doing is, humans are, the human life form, the human skin suit, is directly tied to the vibration of the planet. So if the physical material we're made of vibrates the same rate the planet does, which is 13 hertz or 13 beats per second, they can literally change their physical material to 20 hertz or 20 beats per second, and they're still right there. They're still 50 feet in front of you, but you can't see them anymore because they're vibrating at a higher vibrational rate. So the light, all we ever see is reflected light. You can ask scientists about that, but we no longer see the reflected light off their body if they want to do that. Not all of them know how to do that. Most of them do. Quite a few of them do. I say that like that. But all of them learn the trick of jumping into the brain of the human body and saying, you can't see me. When they do that, the gears roll forward, and the synapses in your brain quit firing, the synapses that lead the reflected light off their body. And that's a couple of different ways they do that.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Definitely. I'm just trying to soak it all in. I've definitely always been interested in Bigfoot, and I had an experience when I was younger to where I thought I saw something, and I came home freaked out. My mom called the police, and they came out there looking to see what I saw, and I drew it, and it would look like Bigfoot. But lately, for some reason, in the past year, I've definitely developed a bigger interest in Sasquatch, and I'm definitely no expert, but I definitely believe they're multidimensional or spiritual and not, wild King Kongs. Totally against people that want to kill them, or I don't even know if people can. There's that weird Justin Smeja story that supposedly he killed a couple. I interviewed him. I don't know if I believe that or not, but I know one thing. He's really good at trying to appear that he feels bad about it if he didn't do it. Are you familiar with that story?
Yeah, and there have been the hairy folks, what I call them, because they're hairy and they're folks, they're people. There have been hairy folks that have been killed by humans throughout history. It's not a new thing, and yes, they can be killed by humans. So, yeah, I know that can go on and does go on.
And I know he just did some kind of documentary, and after reading his interview, I believed him, but I don't know. I wasn't there, but it just seemed like he felt guilty about it. It was really sad about it. And I said, if he's lying, he should win a freaking Golden Globe, because he's really good at putting on the guilt trip about it. And I don't know why anybody would do that, if they didn't do it. I don't know why anybody would make up that they killed Bigfoot if they didn't do it, unless they're just completely, batshit nuts. To suddenly just say, hey, I think I'll go public and say I killed Bigfoot and make it up. I just can't even understand that, but I'm sure, there's people that do that about aliens and stuff out there. And there's people that go crazy and shoot people for no reason, so anybody can do anything. But how many minutes do we got, JoJo? We got to take a break in a minute. I guess our guest next week is Christian Day, warlock necromancer, author of Witch's Book of the Dead, and Christopher George, godfather of psychics, will be co-hosting with me of Second Sight, New York City, and that's next week, Saturday, with the warlock Christian Day. So that should be pretty interesting. And then, of course, after the first week of August, Stephanie and Joe will be doing their show. I'm not sure what the name of it is. Rumors are it's the JoJo and Steffi show. No, I don't know what the name of their show is. I think it's the JoJo and Steffi show. But they're going to be before our show, which is really good. And I'll let you know the real name when I find out. I like the JoJo and Steffi show, though.
That sounds kind of interesting.
But, and they're going to be doing their show the first week of August. And me and Ted Torbich we're going to be interviewing a former CIA government spook. So that should be interesting. No, Robert Daniel Steele, this publisher, hooked me up with him, and he was in the president-elect of the Reform Party. Reform Party is, but he is former CIA, and I know Ted's smart with politics, and he's always ranting on his YouTube videos, so it was either him or Scotty Roberts, people that are political that know a lot about politics, because I don't. I know a little bit from Bill Maher. That's about it. Yeah, Joe, Bill Maher, the liberal that smokes marijuana, the liberal Jew. But we're going to interview Robert Daniel Steele. He is former CIA. I'm kind of freaked out about it. I don't even know what I'm going to ask the guy. But this publisher, North Atlantic Books, they hooked me up with this dude. They're scheduling for me and gave me all these free books, so I didn't even question it really. Plus, I thought it'd be kind of cool just to interview former CIA. That's kind of weird. He seems cool, though, about his whole book's about exposing corruption in the government. So it's the open source manifesto. His whole thing is about fixing the government and making it better. So, but he's still a spook. So we'll see how that goes. I'm a little scared about it. Ted should help me out with that, hopefully. But anywho, I guess it's time for a break.
Well,
and we'll be back.
Before we take a break, if I may put something across to everyone here, because one thing that I've always had is a good sense of humor, and when you get involved in certain things, you just have to have a good sense of humor. So if you don't mind, I'd like to impart a little bit of humor onto everybody.
Sure, go ahead.
Why do mermaids wear seashells?
I don't know.
Because B shells are too big and B shells are too small.
Wow. Wow. Mermaids are hot. I'd do a mermaid. But all right. Let's take a break, and we'll be back in 10 minutes with Thomas Hughes and Andy Colvin. And Andy, if you can, think of a couple questions. I'll let you lead when we come back. And I'm going to sing the theme song for the JoJo and Steffi show. No, I'm not. I do want to know what the name of the show is going to be, though. Come on, it's got to be something good. All right, let's go on break. We'll be back in 10 minutes. This is UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Apparently and historically, opposed to secret society. There is something that we know this way.
Shut down our government defense system.
And we are
Continuing on to the United States Air Force is withholding information from the general public on this subject.
The Church of Mavis.
Welcome back to the Church of Mavis, everybody, with our guest Thomas Hughes and his Mind Speak with the Sasquatch Collective. That's right. We also got Andy Colvin here, author of Mothman Shrieks, his new book. And he's a Mothman photographer. That's right. He's worked with the Butthole Surfers. That's right. There's not many people that could say that, I'm sure.
Kurt Cobain.
You work with Kurt Cobain?
Not in music, but I work for him, but not on music.
Cool. Yeah, Alex Gray's supposed to be doing my interview right now. He needs to hurry up and do like some stuff and finish it. He did Kurt Cobain's In Utero album and Tool's album and Beastie Boys. He's answering questions. Him and his wife are examining her right now. It's taking forever. I wish they would hurry because I want to put that up. That's a generator right there. That's a popular guy to interview, so I'm hoping that they give me that soon or in August. It's kind of taking a while with it, but they said they'd do it. Well, he's a busy dude, so I really look forward to putting out.
Oh, sorry. I have visited the Tool drummer, his house. Hung out with him for a couple times.
Tool?
Very normal people, actually. Most rock stars are very normal.
Yeah.
But as far as, did you want me to get into some questions, or did you have some other things you wanted to say before that?
No, I'm good. You can. It's your turn. Pull out the Joker cards all the way. Go for it.
Okay. Let's see. The question that I didn't mention to you guys during the break had to do with what I call the XX, where you have a real phenomenon, which I believe the Bigfoot phenomenon is, and I believe that there's a real natural sort of UFO phenomenon. And I think the Indians, I do respect what they have to say about both of those topics. And from my own personal experience, I know that there is something to them. Now, and I do also feel like there are either government or private groups who like to fake those sightings and introduce noise into the equation. So I don't really know what my exact question is to Thomas, but maybe he could comment on that. Has he run across that kind of thing? How does he ferret out or filter out, what might be an artificial signal from, say, a Sasquatch versus a real one? And then I was wondering, within the group of people that believe or accept this kind of position that there's something to this, what sort of points do you disagree on? I personally feel like the fakery that goes on adds most of the noise and confusion. But how does that manifest, and what sort of positions do people take within that confusion? And how can we clear that stuff up and get back to like a real research of the real phenomenon and not the fake part that's being stimulated by these faceless people?
Well, what I could say about that kind of stuff is that I don't believe anything. I quit using that terminology a very long time ago. When I was in my teens, I didn't believe anything. I either say that I know or I don't know. And if I don't know, then I'm asking lots of questions so that I can have a way to know it. When I'm mind speaking with the hairy folks, as I call them, I'm usually saying, show me, or I'm waiting for validation. It doesn't cost anything to put information on the back burner so that it's right there, and when the validation comes through, then I know. And if it's not validation that sinks it in for me, I'm asking for more validation. And with them, I always get it. So it's about saying, show me, like you're from the state of Missouri, the show me state. Show me. Or asking for validation. It's like a man in Georgia that I worked with. I was on Skype with him one night and a woman in Oklahoma, and I asked him to just say hello to a Sasquatch that was near his house in his head through MindSpeak, and he did. And I heard her quietly say hello back to him in my head, and I immediately heard him say in his head, this is my imagination. And I got very loud on Skype telling him, you can't do that. You can't sit there and say immediately that it's imagination. And I got a witness to this. There was a woman from Oklahoma listening when I was doing that. I said, you heard her say hello back. Yes, it was quiet. It was not your imagination, though, because I heard it, too. He said, are you in my head? And I said, I'm just listening to the conversation. I'm not in your head. And I heard you say, that's just my imagination. You can't do that if you want to get anywhere. You have to change what you're saying from, it's just my imagination, and start asking for validation. So when he was in the mountains in North Georgia by himself, and he was speaking with the Sasquatch elder, he asked for validation instead of thinking it was his imagination. And when a few seconds later, a large branch came flying in and landed on his left, and then a few seconds later, a large branch came flying in and landed on his right. He said, that's why I accepted it as validation. And I said, well, it's probably a good thing you did, because the third branch would have hit you right in the forehead. So it's a good thing you accepted that. So I don't use believe, again, because if I have an opinion about something, I say I think or I feel it's this way, but I don't use the word I believe because I know that's just an opinion. So I know or I don't know, and I'm not afraid to say I don't know. And I'm not afraid to ask a whole bunch of questions right after I say I don't know. That's just the way I roll with it. Does that make sense?
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, of course, you got anything else, Andy, or is that it for now?
Yeah, no, I'm just sort of going with the flow here. I guess I could ask this question, like, what's the absolute strangest thing that's happened to you?
That I can't really pick one incident. I can't say I had a strange incident here about 2 months ago because I was introduced to a woman that lives in Australia, and she was having some problems there in Queensland, Australia is where she's at. Yes, head girl, I'm taking questions. I'm looking at the chat room in Church Mbabus, so you could just put your questions in and I'll address them there. In any case, I began looking at what she was talking about, and 3 presences came to me. I'll just put it that way. And I didn't get names, didn't worry about that. I usually don't worry about that when I'm communicating with other life forms. And it was 3 Yowie. That's what the Aborigines call the Bigfoot. In Australia, they call them Yowies. So I gave her detailed information about where she was going there in Australia. And I've never been to Australia, so I have no way of knowing that. But I'm listening to what the Yowie people are telling me, and I'm describing to her the very area that she's going to. And that was a little baffling to her, and I'm sitting there going, well, it's not like I try to do this. It just happens. And so I can communicate with them anywhere they're at in the world. All I have to do is let it come in. It's not about focusing. It's not about concentrating. It's not about meditating or any of the other absolute BS things that we've all been taught you have to do. It's not like that. You have to just let it come in. Let your awareness be aware of the fact that, yes, we can communicate with each other like that. So, I gave her, again, like I said, I gave her detailed information, Queensland, Australia, that she was going to, that I would have no way of knowing if it were not for the Yowie that were telling me about it and showing me, because sometimes they'll let you look through their eyes. Hit Girl put a question in, how many kinds of Bigfoot types are there? Well, I mean, there's several answers I could give that. I'll just put it in general terms. I would say there's probably, somewhere between 5 and 8 different kinds, generally. But to answer that question accurately, how many different types of humans are there?
Yeah. But it sounds like you're describing an almost Bigfoot tantra. Well, I don't mean tantra in the sexual way, but the tantra in Buddhism is about natural awareness. And there's not a great emphasis on meditation or anything like that. It's just getting in touch with your basic awareness, realizing that your basic awareness is pure and godly, or whatever you want to call it, sort of like the Sasquatch essence. It's of the earth. It's natural. There's so much going on in our minds and in our bodies each day to keep our wave, if you want to call it, a standing wave in position to observe a phenomenon and experience consciousness, that there's so much going on that you have absolutely no control over that. You can't just tell yourself to stop breathing. I mean, or you can't just tell your heart to stop. I mean, maybe that occasionally happens, but in general, we're here, just like you're saying, we're a soul inside of a body skin, I like your approach. I like that take on it, that you just go out and you're not trying to do anything.
Well, in my experience, I've found that the simpler you keep things, the easier it is to understand. And then any other understanding or revelations that come will come later. But a very simple or basic understanding of things is what people need to look towards, because, again, the simpler you keep it, the easier it is to understand. So I don't use words like pure of heart. Well, what exactly is that? That's why I don't use that term. It's really simple. It's really simple. It's called free will. Okay, you've made your decision. You've made your choice. You want to see them. You want to know them. You want to experience them. Now it's their turn to make their free will choice as to whether they come around you or not. And it's as simple as that. Nothing difficult about that, is there?
Do you also have that with just regular animals? Because I certainly seem to feel like, there are certain times when animals come up to me in strange ways.
Yeah. It's like the woman in Canada that I spoke to about 2 weeks ago. She was able to communicate with her horses. She's got 4 horses, and I started speaking with her horses, and I started describing her horses to her over the phone with her. Three mares and a stud, and I was describing them in very accurate detail. So that afternoon, when she got home from work, she emailed me some pictures of those horses, and it was identical to what I described on the phone. And she was just laughing her head off when I was describing this. She goes, "You really are talking to them." I go, "Well, I guess I am. They're letting me see them, and they're telling me all sorts of stuff right now." And I've got the pictures of those 4 horses right here on my computer, and I'm like, "Yep, I spoke to the right beings. I just." Again, that's validation. That's the validation that comes through. So it just kind of goes from there.
Can you describe how it comes into you? Like, how do you see these mares or these images or whatever it is you're doing when you have these interactions with people and you're seeing something that you're not,
Sometimes it's imminent. It really starts with a feeling. And then you just kind of grok your way through it. It's very much like the communication I have with the autistic children, 2 in Oregon and 1 in Vancouver, Canada. And I had the mothers, the adult women on the phone, gasping in surprise, saying, "How do you know this stuff?" And I had to keep telling them, "I don't know anything. I'm simply repeating to you what's being told to me right now." And I was giving them details that I had no way of knowing because I've never even been to those places. And I'm sitting here in Texas, so how would I know? I don't know. So
it's more of a feeling than words or images?
Well, the reason I call it mind speak is because when a communication goes on, sometimes you get words, but what is always there is feelings or emotions, and then you'll get images, and sometimes, there's other things that come through. So it's never just one thing during a communication, and you just have to be open to it. And then, to make sure you're not going nuts, which I really kind of wish I had been going nuts, to sit there and bounce questions back and forth, kind of like in a conversation we're having right now. We bounce things back and forth so that we have a better and clearer understanding of what's going on. And so it goes like that. I've got people here in this little town that I live in raising their eyebrows and really looking at me funny right now because 3 of my neighbors, over the last week, I passed a question across them as, "Have you seen the bald eagles?" And their immediate answer was, "There's no bald eagles in Texas." And I said, "Really?" And I'm sitting there with my car, and I just opened the door, cranked the stereo up full blast. I burned bald eagle calls to CD and start playing it across my stereo and let it go for about a minute and a half. And one day, a week ago today, on Saturday, I was over at my neighbor's house, and all of a sudden, after playing those calls, about a minute and a half later, there were 5 bald eagles circling around in the sky, and I said, no, wait until that one's coming down low. You tell me what color the head is on that bird. And it's a 6-foot wingspan or more. And he said, it's white. And I said, do you know any other bird in this area that might have a white head besides the bald eagle? And he's like, no. And so I've got 3 neighbors that are looking at me with wide eyes and question marks because, you know, they know I've had experiences with Sasquatch. They think I'm crazy or a hoaxer or a delusional or I live in a fantasy world or any description you want to put to it. And all of a sudden I'm asking them about bald eagles, which are not supposed to be in Texas at all. And all of a sudden they're coming by and saying hi to me because I'm calling to them with the stereo in my car, and I'm saying hi to them back. Hi, brothers. Hi, family. How you doing? And they just fly overhead.
Well, that's interesting because we have some eagles in Seattle where I live in the park there. I did, this is kind of rare that all eagles make their comeback. It carries a lot of the other eagles back to the spot. It happens to be the place where Mothman has been seen twice. And there's some speculation that there's a relationship between Bigfoot and Mothman, that maybe Mothman has like equivalent wings, or it's a Mothman without wings, or maybe it's the same creature shape-shifting, or some don't have wings, while others do. You know that at all? And maybe there's a relationship to eagles there, too. I don't know.
Well, what I can say about that, just to give a basic and clear understanding about it, is that we're all connected. Dogs, cats, birds, horses, cows, humans, whales, dolphins, fish, you name it. We're all part of this planet, so we're all connected. It's not just one group that's connected to another group that's connected to another group. No, we're all connected. And that's what one of the autistic children, she called in an entire hive of honeybees because she wanted the playground all to herself. And the woman was on the phone kind of freaking out with me because that happened. So I shifted gears in my head and I said, where did you learn to do this? And she said, from you. And I said, no, I didn't teach you this. She goes, you just don't realize you taught me this. And I said, detail it for me. And she said, well, you know, there's always an exchange. And I said, yeah, I'm aware of that. And she goes, did you recall that I was cramming geometrics and equations into your head? And I said, yeah, I remember that too. And she goes, well, I just plucked it right out of your head about the world consciousness. I'm like, oh my God. So you called the honeybees in and you had the playground all to yourself there at school, didn't you? And she goes, yeah. And I heard laughter. I'm like, oh God, a monster. Okay, I created a monster. Great. And it just goes like that.
Geometric shapes have been seen at different paranormal experiencers, and certainly some of the people that we call autistic have, almost supernatural powers in specific areas. What do you think's happening there? And is there a way to tap into or learn from what autistic people, the powers that you have? Is there a way to figure out how to apply that to other people?
You're kind of getting some on my end, but that's okay. What I'll say about autistic children is that they're kind of cheaper. They're in disguise because one of the things that we've done throughout time over the last 30 or 40 years, we've classified children that can't fit into the box that we call normal. We've classified them as retarded. So back in the 70s, one of the groups of souls that was coming into the biosphere of the planet were the crystal children. But they didn't quite make it because the powers that were knew about these souls coming in, and they didn't want to give up their control. Obviously, they still don't. So they were killing them. and they all ended up as what you might remember as the milk carton kids back in the 70s. And they were putting kids' pictures. Have you seen this kid? That's who the crystal children were, and they said, well, we have to rethink this because they know that we're coming in. So that group of souls that came in as crystal children, and there's a lot, started coming in as retarded children because nobody in this messed up society we have pays attention to retarded children. So it's a perfect disguise without anybody knowing who they are. How does that strike you?
You were a little staticky there, so I missed a couple of phrases, but so I can't. I'm not sure I have a total grasp of that.
Do you remember the milk carton kids back in the 70s?
Yes.
Okay, those were the original crystal children that were coming in, a group of souls, crystal children. And because the powers that were realized they were coming in, they were doing everything they could to keep from losing their control. So they were killing them. And that's why they ended up... And that's why they reformatted what they were doing and decided to come in as retarded children, or rather autistic children. And there's kids with Down syndrome that are crystal children as well. And these souls are formatted to speak in a telepathic nature. That's why it's not necessary for them to be able to communicate verbally, because they can communicate telepathically.
Wow.
Is that...
What is it about them that is fighting the powers that be?
Because the powers that be, their biggest thing is control. It's not about money. It's not about fear. All those things are just tools to maintain control. They want to control us. They've been doing it for millennia. Well, their time is up. This agreement was entered some 26,000 years ago. That time is at an end. And so there's too many of them that are addicted to, almost like a druggie, would be addicted to the control that they have over us, and they don't want to let control go, so they're doing everything they can to maintain their control. It's part of the game that we're playing here. It's part of the experiment that's going on here. And so if people continue to react with their emotions instead of really looking at the situation, asking lots of questions and seeing what's really going on instead of reacting emotionally, they've got to, because as souls, the reason why we're here is to learn how to live a physical life. We pretty much know everything there is to know about being a soul. Now the challenge in front of us is learning how to be a physical life form at the same time that we are a soul, because we are a soul, or animation of consciousness, or spirit, whatever vernacular or verbiage you'd like to put to that. That's simply what it is.
That seems to parallel some things I've been saying about the Mothman phenomenon, is that there are certain ways to access information from what someone might call the collective unconscious or something like that, where you can tap into maybe knowledge of the future, like some of the ways that you've been able to see what's going to happen next, like when you got struck by lightning and that kind of thing. Certain powers of perception that seem to coalesce around certain geomagnetic locations, certain ritual activities, seeing creatures like Bigfoot or Mothman, it seemed to occur to people with heightened psychic powers. I've definitely talked about how there seems to be a widespread program to shut down information about the phenomenon so that nobody knows how to deal with it when it happens, and they're all left ignorant and powerless, basically what you're saying. So I can see I can see the similarity there.
Well, yeah, and you can trace it throughout history. I mean, it doesn't take a brain scientist or a genius to track this kind of stuff. I mean, is it any wonder that they had a Spanish Inquisition? Is it any wonder that they had the Salem witch trials? Is it any wonder that they slaughtered 90 million in what everybody calls Indians? Because the Indians over here, we knew what was going on. We knew how to do things. So is it any wonder when you start connecting the dots and seeing these things for what they are? Is it really any wonder why they people and did so many things? Because it was all about control. And they wanted to dumb humans down, and they want to control us. And it's as simple as that. But their time is up. That's why they're trying to spread fear. That's why they're doing the things they're doing, because they want everybody to stay in fear, because for some reason, these infantile, they can maintain control. And simply put, they cannot.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating how these this lower consciousness can keep control over a seemingly higher consciousness in so many different ways, using fear and other tactics.
I read an open letter to Obama from a light worker from South Africa. And she said, the humans on this planet are like the fleas on the back of a dog. And now all of a sudden, they're all looking around, the fleas are all looking at each other, and they're asking each other the question, I wonder if there's life on other dogs.
So, Thomas, when you say that their time's almost up, who's putting their time up? Who's going to kick their ass? I mean, who's going to expose them? They seem like they're already being exposed, but do you mean like who's in charge of them that's going to expose them, like alien beings, creators, or what?
No, it's not about kicking anybody's backside. And the reason their time is almost up is because we entered into an agreement with them, so to speak, just to put it in those terms, because that's the simplest way to understand it. We entered into an agreement with them 25,920 years ago and some change, something around that time. And we invited them in with two words, test us. Test us. And that's what they've been doing the whole time. So all these things that everybody looks at as bad and horrible, and yeah, some of the things were, no denying that, but we invited them in and they accepted the invitation. And now that time is up. That time is over with because we made an agreement. They made an agreement. So here it is, bottom of the ninth, 3 runners on base, and 2 outs, and all we need is one more out, and the game is over. And they're doing everything they can to hit that ball so they can score more points in this game. They think that will save them, but it simply won't, because the agreements are already there. They've been there for a long time.
So who are they? They're like an evil entity, or what?
Well, you brought that word up, so I will just explain evil, because people put too much emphasis on that. Evil is simply this. It's free will making a choice to do harm. So who is evil? Anybody can be evil. It doesn't necessarily take one life form, one physical life form. Anybody who makes a free will choice to do harm is evil. And it's as simple as that. There's a lot of them on what we call the negative side, or the people that we invited into this biosphere, into this reality with us, that have walked away already. A lot of them are living on Mars right now. They've walked away. Said, okay, our time's up. We've made this agreement, so we're getting out. And basically what we're doing is just cleaning up the last of them that are here, the reptilians and the Greys, Hydra and Draconian reptilians. They're gone. They've been gone for a while now, about 4 months. They were basically sent off to another reality, is the best way I can describe it. They're not even in this cosmos as we know it right now. They're in a different reality altogether. The only thing left is the hybrids that are here on the planet.
So the ones that don't want to leave or finish the contract out, I mean, they have like huge pull over government and the military. They have technology that can slaughter us like drones. I mean, it seems like I don't see how they're going to be dethroned unless something happens, like some type of intervention or like an extinction level event that wipes them out or something. I'm trying to figure out how they're going to be thrown out the door. It just seems kind of like they're in there pretty good, surrounded by all this, death machines.
The biggest challenge that we're looking at right now as this goes along, because there is no such thing as time. I know you've heard people say that before. So instead of calling it the time stream, I call it the event stream. Because, just like at a baseball game, X number of events have to happen before the event stream will move forward. 3 outs have to happen during an inning in the baseball game before it switches. And it goes back and forth like that. So I just call it the event stream. The biggest challenge that faces this planet right now is not the negative side, and is not the people who think they're in control. That's why I call them the powers that were. The biggest challenge in front of this entire world right now is the programming that all the humans have been put under, because they will do everything they can to defend the programming. So it's not the reptilians, it's not the hybrids, it's not any of those little infantile-minded individuals that are doing this. It's the programming. It's already in place. And, you'd have better luck hammering and chiseling makeup off the doppelganger's face than you would getting this programming out of people's heads. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, do you think anything's going to happen this year? What do you think about the December 21st stuff? Because he keeps saying the 26,000-year thing. Isn't that what's supposed to happen on December 21st? Is that alignment, the Dark Rift? Has that got any connection to any of this?
No, there's a lot of things that have been misconstrued. There's a person on Facebook I've had to deal with that has a suicide note written for December 22nd, because if the world doesn't end on December 21st, they're going to take their life. I'm like, okay, you enjoy that ride. Let me know how it turns out for you. But essentially what's going on right now is the planet, let me preface with some things from, I'm not even sure how long, the harmonic resonance or frequency of this biosphere planet was 7 beats per second, 7 hertz. It's an interesting correlation because we have a 7-chakra system. If you've ever heard about chakras before, the human body has 7 main chakras. From 2007 to 2010, scientists very succinctly recorded that the frequency harmonic resonance of this planet went from 7 beats a second, or 7 hertz, to 13 beats per second, or 13 hertz. So it nearly doubled in frequency in 3 years. Now, what's happening this year, every month that goes by, and there are 13 months in a year, and I'll stop right there because I hear people going, 13 months in a year, but there's only 12. Well, according to the Roman Catholic Empire, the Roman Empire never died. They just became the Catholics, and Pope Gregory wrote the Gregorian calendar that we're all on right now. There are, if you look at the lunar calendar, it's 13 months, as there is 13 full moons. If you want to do the math, there's 7 days in a week, 4 weeks in a month, 7 times 4 is 28, 13 times 28 is 364, leaving one more day, 365. That last day is the of Holies. That's when we danced and celebrated and had fun and celebrated life with creation. That's why the calendar works that way. So do the math, everyone. You can do it. I know you got calculators. There's a calculator function in your computer that you're listening to on right now. Just go ahead and do 28 times 13, and you'll see how many days there are in 13 months, 364. In any case, where was I? I deferred too much. What was your question again? I'm sorry?
any significance to December 21st, 2012 with the time frame of the 26,000 years?
As every month goes by, thank you for helping me find where I left out that. As every month goes by, the chakra system that's already in the planet each chakra is activating. And as it activates in the planet, it activates in the human body. So right now, we're in the Gregorian calendar, it's the 7th month, okay? But in actuality, if you do the math, we just entered the 7th month a week or so ago. So right now, with this new chakra system, we're entering the throat chakra. And I'm sure there's quite a few people that I know of, and people listening to the show, that have been having congestion or coughing or a sore throat, things like that. It's because this throat chakra in your human body, your human shell, is activating right now. It's becoming fully activated with the new energies. Now, it gets very interesting from there because around the middle to late part of August, the 8th chakra begins to activate, which is the Well of Dreams chakra. That's going to be all sorts of fun because people can dream about stuff and it will manifest in just a few days because the Well of Dreams chakra is becoming activated. I'll read this out. I'll put it in the Church of Mbabus chat room. I'll copy and paste it and put it in there so people can get it from there if they'd like to. Oh, okay. Undo. There we go. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart at the moment. Everybody has those once in a while, right? So,
yep.
I'm putting them in now. I think I am. No, it won't let me.
It may act weird with copy and paste.
Yeah, it does. So I'll just read it out. Okay. The new chakra system is, number 1 is root, number 2 is sex, number 3 is solar plexus, number 4 is diaphragm, number 5 is heart, number 6 is thymus, that's Thymus, thymus, number 7 is throat, number 8 is Well of Dreams, number 9 is pituitary, number 10 is pineal, number 11 is crown, number 12 and number 13 are galactic female and galactic male. That's the new energy system we're going to in this 13 beats or 13 per second or 13 hertz frequency. That's why the chakra system we have in these physical bodies matches the harmonic resonance of the planet. It's pretty easy to see once you start putting all these dots together and connecting them like that. Am I making sense or am I going too fast?
You're good.
Okay.
So, what can we expect at the end of this? The 12th one, is that the 12th one or the 13th one and 12th one? Is that the end of this year?
Yes.
So, what happens at that point?
We come back into our full awareness at that point, and as you saw a few days ago, people, as these new energies come in and these new chakras activate, it will start to drive people insane. They will start to do things that are crazy. The incident at the theater in Aurora, Colorado, and the Batman show, that's just one. There's going to be a lot more like that because it's really going to drive people nuts, having to deal with these energies as they come in. So by me talking about this right now and making everyone aware of this right now, just raising your awareness, even if you want to leave it as a concept. I'm not asking anyone to believe anything I'm saying. Please don't believe anything I say. That's the first and foremost thing that I will say to everyone. Don't believe a thing go out there and find out for yourself. But I would ask that you leave this in the possibility phase so that when things start to come up in your life, you've already been exposed to this information. You have an awareness of it. Your awareness is the key because you can't make a free will conscious decision unless you have an awareness of it. So now everyone is aware of these things, and they'll start to see crazy behavior. And I know that everyone has seen different trees and bushes that have one branch with dead leaves on it And then there's another couple of branches on that tree that have fall-time colors. And then the rest of the entire tree or bush is green, because all the plants on the planet right now are going through all 4 seasons every day. Every single day that goes by, what we call a day, all the plants on this planet are going through all 4 seasons every day as we go through this energy. That's why they have different colored leaves all over the tree right now. I'm sure you've noticed that, huh, Jeff?
I just noticed that the other day.
And what about your co-host? Have you noticed it?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about it.
Yeah.
How the odd, there was an odd thing with all the leaves on the trees in Seattle. Some are good, some are not. Didn't really make any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense when you start to take into consideration that these energies are coming in, and as it goes by, this is elevating up in energy and frequency, and right now, one day is equal to about 120 to 130 years of time passing by as we understand time. So, literally, this is why their control will not work, because this entire planet is about to springboard up through evolution. If you go by the concept of evolution, we're about to springboard up into about 5,000 years of evolution in a year to a year and a half. That's why all the plants are showing us right now.
Well, that's certainly part of the prophecy that we're moving into a new age, so I can buy that.
Yeah, and it's not, so many people buy into that stuff they put out there for fear reasons about a doomsday scenario or this, that, and the other. And the Mayans even have a website showing how their calendar does not show that, and they don't show that. Their website is called Shift of Ages. And I encourage everyone to go have a look at it. It didn't cost anything to put Shift of Ages in a search engine and go to their website and have a look around. Because it's literally about shifting out of this age into a new age, a new way of living, thinking, seeing, understanding, and being. And it's as simple as that. Is there?
So the Sasquatch are appearing to people that
last call for alcohol, folks. Last call.
So they're basically appearing to people to open them up to these changes and to get people ready. They're like teachers or spirit guides or
Well, people that are ready to handle these kind of things, yes, they're appearing to. And there's a woman I work with in Waco, Texas, that they're coming around her house. Her whole family knows that they're there. And she's had quite a few experiences, and I've spoke with some of the very folks that are around her place. And it just goes like that. My favorite, my funniest incident is when a Sasquatch came into my head and told me a joke. If you know anything about Bigfoot hunters, over the last 2 or 3 years, they've really started doing what's called tree knocking, because they finally figured out that, hey, that's one of the ways they communicate. Well, yes, it is, but it's kind of like a Morse code, and if you don't know what you're saying, just knocking on a tree is not going to get you very far. So the Sasquatch came into my head one morning when I was sitting here with coffee, and I said, what do you want? He said, joke for you. I said, oh, man, I'm on my first cup of coffee. I don't know if I want to hear a joke. Too bad. You're here anyway. I said, fine. What's the joke? He said, I say knock, knock. You say who there? I said, oh, God, one of these. Okay, fine. Go ahead. Tell me the joke. He said, okay. Knock, knock. I said, who's there? He said, knock, knock. I said, who's there? He said, knock, knock. I said, who's there? He said, knock, knock. I said, how long is this going to go on for? And he said, how do you like it?
All right, on that note, we got a couple of minutes left. I just wanted to make an announcement. Starting August 4th, there will be a new show hosted by Joe Montaldo and Stephanie Benetti called The Sexy People Show. And that'll be right before my show, and that's The Sexy People Show. It's The Sexy People Show, so I'm sure I'll be a guest on there sometime because I'm a sexy person. So, Thomas, if you could tell us a couple of any links and stuff, and we'll have to. We're at the finale.
Well, I co-host a radio show with Dave Corso on wolfspiritradio.com, so you can hear or contact me through that website. Other than that, it's pretty easy to get in touch with me. I don't hide from anyone. I don't cloak and dagger, the kind of stuff. I'm not worried about anybody coming and messing with me because I've got 2 wolves that live in my house, or wolf dogs, I should say, hybrids. And so nobody gets in here unless I invite them in. But I do want to impart one more story. I'm a quarter Cherokee, and I've got an Apache brother that has gone down this road with me, and he interacts with a clan of the hairy folks out towards San Antonio, and they led him out to an area along a river, and he was really impressed with how pretty it was out there, so he flipped up on his cell phone and put it in camera mode. He was going to take a picture because there's mountains in the background and a river, and there's a big boulder in the middle of this river. And Sasquatch adolescent is standing on this rock, and he's about 150 yards away, so he's mind speaking to the adolescent and motioning with his hands, and he's saying, "Get down, because he wants to take a picture, and he doesn't want the Sasquatch adolescent to be in the picture. So he sees the adolescent get down, so he goes click and takes a picture. Then he emails it to a group of us about how pretty it is, and it is a nice picture. It's very pretty scenery. But it was the Mohawk woman in Oklahoma that sent him an email back up and laughing so hard I couldn't hardly breathe, because she said, "Why is that boulder in the middle of the river growing a toupee?" I told him, I said, "You can't do that, man, because they're going to take you literally. They're not on autopilot. You have to tell him to get down and get behind the rock." And as you saw, he just got down and laid right there on top. And yes, the boulder looks like it's growing a toupee.
All right, everybody, we got to go. Make sure you check out the site, churchofmbabusradio.com. Make sure you go to amazon.com and look up The Mothman Shrieks by Andy Colvin. Check out his new book, and it's been an excellent show. And everybody keep the Aurora, Colorado people in mind and say a prayer for them. Everybody have a good weekend. Thanks for listening.